I'm telling you, man.
We are crashing. We are crashing. Dude, have you still not seen that? Fired Up? I think we've talked about this before. Like, and we'll have to add that to the list if you haven't seen that shit yet.
Well, you keep talking about this other one, and I think I found it, but I didn't feel like paying to watch it.
Oh, the newest Dr. Greer shit, or
no? Like can't think of the damn name of it. It was like a movie. It was Interstellar. Was it?
Oh yeah. The Matthew McConaughey one where they work within a construct of time and space utilizing gravity.
Yeah, that sounds really intriguing.
I like, especially with all of the UFO talk that we've been getting lately and whatnot. I've been really enjoying the Dr. Greer stuff where it seems to be more about the technology, free energy specifically, but these pieces and components of it. It's like, who gives a shit if it's a conspiracy or there's been a cover up, you've been lied to? We don't give a fuck. Let's just better humanity right now. Let's find a way to utilize this technology. But there's too many people in place of power that are going to hold that shit from the people. And that's not cool, bro. Not cool.
Yeah, what he's doing seems pretty unbelievable.
Well, and that's
one of the things. Like, I had that weird suspension of disbelief thing where it's kind of waffling sometimes, because a lot of the stuff he says, it's like he says it in a very factual way, and you're like, wouldn't more people be like up in arms about this? Like, it seems like it would be more like in the forefront of the news media, but is that really how bad it's gotten now?
Well, I think a lot of that, while people want to call it a conspiracy or not a conspiracy, it doesn't matter. The simple fact is there is definitely individuals that have power that do modify the media, that do, censor things for whatever reasons, because some of it might be to, air quotes, protect us, but it also might be to protect their interests. Or, simple fact is there's definitely figures or entities of some sort that are controlling a lot of what we do. The way it's being done is very much built within the psychology of us as humans, so that we don't even realize it. Like, we're all basically just walking around in habits, being mindless zombies, more or less.
It seems like certain I think people were referencing Mandela effect in some of the shorts that I was watching lately.
Well, this is why I like the idea of a Mandela effect being that all of the different timelines, parallel universes, etc., run simultaneously. Is you get into the different dimensions, fifth, sixth, all that, where time and space is of no context, only as reference. It's just another way to perceive things, basically. You get into the allowance to more or less like jump from space to space as you're resonating, because maybe as a different version of you is resonating on a different frequency and you've swapped places with them. Well, the life that you would have led being on that timeline would have alternate memories for everyone else, but not you.
But I mean, is this still all working within the construct of like, this is a hologram kind of thing?
Well, but that goes to the conversation of we're light fractals, right? Like, we're all just fractals of light. We're these molecules that have combined to solidify, on a vibratory level to make our cells, our skin, our everything.
Oh, that we're all a lower vibration of light. Yeah.
So, I mean, on that level, yeah, this is that's why I like, this is definitely a simulation in that sense.
Human.
If we're these constructs, if we're the, to express it as this is a simulation is just another way to explain that these are, this is the interactions, that puts you into the realm of understanding that, like a video game where you build a construct and have interactions. That's basically what we're in, but that doesn't mean that it's not real. It's just another way to perceive or understand that information.
That's what this all boils down to, because what is real? Because like and that's one thing where I trip up with the whole hologram theory. And I can't say that it's wrong, because the problem is everything that you perceive as reality is something going on within your brain. Everything you can see, smell, hear, taste, touch, that's all being received inside your brain. Like,
It's all data that's going through neural connections.
Not that it's
same as a computer.
Not that it has to be a hologram per se, but what you perceive, even though
you got to do the air quotes when you do air quotes. Come on, man.
Air quotes, hologram, but like what you perceive.
Way to phone that one in.
What you perceive in your mind may not be the actual reality around you, but it doesn't mean like that same reality is affecting me in different ways. But like, does that really change the definition of what real is?
Well, that's why I like the idea perception is what makes it real. If that's what you're perceiving, if that's what you're seeing, feeling, hearing, tasting, if that's what it is to you, then that's what it is. I think that's the great thing
about your reality at that moment.
Yeah, I think that's the great thing about being human is that we can all be having the same experience, but on a completely different level because it all comes down to how we perceive it.
I feel like I should be speaking like Morpheus, talking about some of these things. What is real?
Well, but we perceive it as light and we understand it as fractals of light because we can break it down logically or scientifically to state that. It's just a perception. But, that's why you brought up Interstellar. I really like that idea because
I got to see it.
Well, by the end of the movie, they give you a physical representation of what it is to be in a construct of space and time, but based within the idea of gravity. For us to truly understand gravity and to be able to utilize that, I think is one of the great, discoveries or technologies that is probably there. And we should be sharing that shit for sure.
You can't negate gravity, but if you can tie into something that's more powerful, whether we have reverse engineered technology already, or this is all speculation, but it's coming from somewhere, that maybe it's running off of the geomagnetic, magnetic electric reaction that the planet has with the sun.
Yeah. I mean,
we're basically a battery when you look at it. I mean,
the Earth in a sense. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a holder of energy.
Well, we don't have a fully molten core. Apparently there's some hollow spaces in there, but there is a lot of iron,
100% there's hollow spaces.
Well, there would have to be.
I am convinced there's a civilization living in the freaking under the surface of the earth, whether it's in Antarctica or whether it's somewhere else. It's there.
Well, this stuff hasn't become public knowledge yet, but isn't there a whole bunch of shit, or is it now? Isn't there a whole bunch of shit right underneath the Giza Plateau? And that's just scratching the surface, but that was Thoth's playground, was it not?
Well, and see, this is why when we started talking with the 308 about pyramids and all that shit, and you made that statement of Thoth thought that into, existence and resonated it into position. To me, that goes
drop down from a higher frequency realm.
But to me, that goes back to that idea of you're talking about a space and time construct as well as a gravity-based construct, and being able to have that piece come from the one to the other. So did it gravitate? Because we're talking about trying to understand what gravity is. We call that a resistance or pull of force that yanks us to the ground. And that's the thing is this earth is spinning its ass off. Everything that we know with centrifugal force throws shit out. And yet we're stuck here, right? So it's like having the understanding of what gravity means, because we're basically denying what all science tells us. Because we can, on this earth, sling shit out. We can have centrifugal and all of a sudden stuff comes off of that. So gravity is able to be, pulled away from or, removed from because you're
talking about sending rockets up or something.
Well, anything. Dude, you're just talking spinny toys and shit, fucking when you go to the carnival and they have those rides and they start spinning you fast enough, all of a sudden you just float up.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. So if we can look at what gravity really is, where we're saying that it's very, in the science world, things are rigid. It's you have to put in these inputs and then you get this output. And if you do that, it comes out at a consistent enough rate that we can call this fact. Doesn't mean it's true. It just means it's highly, provable. I think if we're capable of, we need to be looking at a different understanding of what gravity is in and of itself. That's why, again, I liked your Thoth idea where it's like you literally resonated it into existence, because all of these things are already out here. Like we already have all these molecules, these fractals of light, all these things. We know that they can be grouped and turned into stuff. Well, what if you, like Interstellar style, can be outside of this time and space realm built within a construct of gravity? Wouldn't you be able to amass something that would then form itself into that place?
Sure.
I mean, it sounds like
theoretically, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, also goes to the point of
really
like
weird, fascinating area of science to talk about, because literally anything is possible when you look at it that way. If we have been contacted by aliens at all and it's been covered up, aliens have to have something faster than this, the anti-gravity thing that we always discuss. It has to be something about folding time and space, because that's the only way to successfully be able to travel interstellar.
Well, not so much. I wouldn't say fold. I would say distort or modify. So it's almost as if, like, just like in the movie The Explorers,
Well,
you're creating this bubble where more or less time and space no longer exists.
Well, you're entering an area where you can't even call it an area. You're entering into a space that's neither time or space in order to do that. So you're entering a 0 point. The thing about a 0 point is once it enters, it can exit from anywhere, anytime, any place.
Correct. Yeah. Right turns and shit.
Well, I mean, all of that stuff that we see in the sky that people have claimed and had video of, and all that stuff that we've been really soaking up lately, that's only how it moves around within the Earth's atmosphere.
Or how we perceive it moving around.
You know, and it has to be, the only plausible explanation is that it has to be something magnetic in nature, and something with a power source that's immense and nearly infinite. I mean, what was your one guy saying about like creating its own gravity within the confines of the vessel that it was in, this little basketball sized basically reactor that was sitting in the center of this one spacecraft.
Well, yeah, I mean, oh man, I don't even want to get on Bob Lazar on this shit.
But come on, man.
Well, no, because I feel like there's some, bigger things with all that, regardless of the information that supposedly came with him. But so this is why, going back to Dr. Greer, I feel, because he's gotten away from the terminology anti-gravitics, meaning it's not about gravity.
No. It's
well, that's why I like the idea more of like the movie The Explorers, where they make this little bubble, but this bubble, as we see it or perceive it, is now anti-gravity, and it's a sealed environment so that you can have oxygen anywhere and all that kind of stuff, and you can make right turns, and it doesn't affect it.
It takes up no space, has no mass.
Well, to me, that's more of you're putting within the construct of space and time a different idea that basically negates it. So even though you're still a part of it and things are still happening and you're moving within that space, it does not affect you. So to me, it's not like anti-gravitic really. It's just you're creating this almost like wormhole or black hole, or just there, this energy source that allows to disrupt what actual space and time is, as far as a physical feeling in that construct. Like when you get hit, even though technically we know those molecules never actually, like, so our skins never touch, there's molecules in between on like so many thinner, skinnier levels. Like but yet somehow you still get bruised. I
don't care when I feel my flesh ripped open by somebody punching me. I still feel it.
Right. But
don't tell me you didn't touch me.
And that's why, to me, that comes into the idea of space and time. That's why we have perception or sensory perception.
Yeah. But the claim is that you never cross each other's boundaries per se. Like, no matter, even if you're touching somebody,
I'm not touching this table.
You're not actually touching them. You're touching the air between, because you can never close that gap completely. I want to believe it. but I tend to be on the side of, well, is there any proof at all other than it just looks that way? Or?
Well, see, that's why I like the idea of looking at gravity differently, as more of just an additional construct like space and time. It's all based within perception. So just because you have great consistencies of how these things are, it doesn't mean that that's actually how it fucking works. It's just what we have is a great consistency as far as understanding.
But isn't that the kind of thing? So I've wondered about that too, that if there is somewhat of a connection between, like there is between time and space, if there's a connection somewhat between magnetics and electricity, but also between magnetics and gravity, if there isn't somewhat of a, because it's weird how they're all coexistent within that, especially when you look at the Earth as a globe that sits in orbit around the sun, and the way Einstein considered gravity, it was basically like it's weighing a section of space around it, air quotes, and that causes other things to be pulled towards it because it's basically putting a hole in space-time.
Well, that's why again, I think we've been looking at gravity in an incorrect manner. We're attempting to express what gravity is within a space and time construct when it has nothing to do with it. Like they're completely separate ideas that coexist at the same moments, at least within our perception, because we are based within that construct of space and time. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's where it's better actually to talk about the two as one. Like just refer anytime it's either space or time, it's space time. Because you can't have one without the other. If you think about it with our linear logical brain,
well, I would say because we're based within perception.
In this moment, I exist here in this moment.
Yeah, that's why
that's how you describe.
That's why I like the idea that we are merely strands of data. That's why the hologram idea or the simulation idea, to me, it helps to express space and time and gravity all at the same moment. Coexisting of all, principles.
Laws of the construct more than anything.
Well, but to me, I feel like those being together is the construct. Like that's how it's together. So it's that yin and yang thing where it's like you have to have that. Otherwise, it's not actually going to work. So the whole reason why it does work is because you do have these. So it's not like this is how it was formed. This is what it's formed from. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's almost like when two things get together and they mate and you just got this thing now. It's just like, peanut butter and chocolate. Bam, we got Reese's Cups. Space and time, gravity. Boom, we have Earth.
But you have
living entities.
A synergistic creation. You have something that's greater than the sum of its parts.
Connectitude.
Just bringing up old.
I got to throw in some How I Met Your Mother in there. Come on, man. You know how I roll.
Connectitude.
It's what I do, man. Come on. It's why. This is the way the dancing monkey works.
Isn't this what we? Ching, ching.
Pretty much, yeah, man.
That's what we do.
But dude, that's why I like the idea of being able to explain, the constructs in that fashion. Why it's able to say that we have that Mandela effect, because really what we're talking about is having, recallable information from a alternate perception of all of these fractals of light. So there doesn't even technically necessarily have to be an alternate me, but me projecting myself into that realm could cause me to now have existed, which means for that timeline to be that there would have been all these other memories, but I'm pulling from my own. Cause it's like,
so you have no problem falling into that assumption right away instead of maybe just assuming that you remembered something wrong? Or is it just the fact that so many people remembered something wrong?
Well, but that's what I'm saying is it's not so many people remember it wrong. It's because there's so many that are on this timeline from that timeline that recall it as this information. There's enough of us as we've been going back and forth between things. Because, you're talking billions of people. Statistically, the probability is that there's going to be a high percentage, of whatever rate that they're going to have those memories are going to come from that alternate world or worlds that are close to it. Because it doesn't even have to be that exact parallel universe. It could be an alternate one. but one that's very similar to that line, and that's why you were able to resonate together into this different line. You know, that's the idea of like quantum leaps. What was the freaking the show back in the day? Sliders or something like that, where they would go in and out of time, almost like quantum leap style. But
I think I saw 1 or 2 episodes. I didn't really get into it,
but in that you get to the place where they do come across alternate timelines in parallel universes, because that's ultimately what they're doing. But they still have this knowledge of what it was. So to me, that really explains the idea of a Mandela effect very succinctly, because it's like, yeah, of course, I, as this entity, recalls all of this information because I perceived it. Doesn't mean that everyone else here did.
Yeah, absolutely. I get sometimes I'm totally listening to you, and then while I'm listening to you, I'm like thinking about, like, are NPCs really a real thing? Have you heard any of this? Like, seriously, have you followed any of this apparent that there are people out there that really truly believe that there's non-playable characters popping in and out of our actual existence? Like, when you're in a crowd of people, it's not nearly as many people as you think it is, because there's construct figures that are popping in and out. And like, I've heard stories, and I don't know how much of this is just bogus, like this is the newest thing for people to like go crazy on, but
well, see, that's
something I've heard on a couple of threads about these NPC people that, like, you know, you see them and something weird just tells you, like, follow them, and then they go around a blind corner, and they're gone, disappeared.
When was it the movie Free Guy came out? I had the thought of, just like I was saying, if we resonate in and out of different timelines, what's not to say that there's just basically a empty shell of me that's being perceived in fractals of light in this parallel universe that's missing its soul. Like, just like in the Joe versus the volcano, where he's like, I'm losing my soul. And he just like, you feel empty. You're just a hollow shell in a sense. What if that's basically what they are? And then, as you know, different parts of you from the other universes or timelines resonates in and out of that shell. So when you're not on that frequency, you're just not in that line. Your shell is empty at that point. But that helps to explain NPCs.
That's really wild shit. But I mean, because even you would think that would even be referenced by some of these people, and maybe it is. Maybe I just haven't caught it. But some of these people that claim they do, it's more than remote viewing, but actual astral travel and stuff like that. That a world opens up. There's a very small percentage of people that claim that the world opens up for them at night when they go to sleep. That they can let their body sleep, but their mind can be active all night and literally have a whole nother life.
Well, I mean, wasn't that part of what's...
And who's to say that isn't real? But like, would they have stumbled on the same thing? Would they have been able to find the rift in this time space and just jump out of it completely into another multiverse?
Well, that's what I like about the idea of butterfly effect, because that's basically what you're doing is you're astral projecting yourself into a alternate time space than you are. And because of your actions there, it puts you onto this new alternate timeline or this other.
It in a diary, or?
Well, he just had to be able to recall it. He found out that he could just do it with like a picture. He could do it by
it wasn't the actual writing. It was that he was able to recall.
Yeah, it was that he went into a meditative state and basically projected into, which also coincided with him having almost like old school Will Ferrell moments where he's like, "What happened? I blacked out."
Oh, like, yeah, he would have an upload moment where he would just basically go comatose and have a seizure for a minute.
Yeah. So, I mean,
it got bad because the more he started changing, like just changing a little thing affects you, but then changing a huge thing that has repercussions throughout time, space. And then it was like, that's where he started getting nosebleeds. Remember?
Well, that was also him. Really basically getting the download where it was like all of the memories from this timeline. So he could
suddenly, rushing back into it. Yeah. So he made one change and it changed everything in that future to his present person, which was living in that future.
Yeah.
It changed everything along that timeline. But according to that.
Yeah. And again, that's why I'm like, I think the idea of Mandela effects is really more a part of something like that. It's mass quantities of us as individuals coming in and out of different timelines. But that also, again, goes back to explaining like NPCs and all that other kind of stuff. You know, I mean, what was it? Jet Li's The One or whatever, when he was jumping from timeline to timeline and like grouping himself to become a stronger entity.
Yeah.
Something in that kind of a fashion where you can go in and out of, because again, to me, time and space is just a perception or a construct or a list of rules of how things interact, or, you know.
Like you said, maybe this you jumping into that timeline jumps into that body because you're the same frequency. And whatever was in there animating it is dormant because you've jumped into it.
Well, that's why I say it's more of just
like
it's,
that
it's
idea,
an empty shell that it's just, you know, it's
that
just
idea and the reference for people that don't understand the reference to the Mandela effect and the matrix glitches is what I would call it, is the idea that you're seeing something that you swear was different when you remember it in the past. And the question is, are you on another alternate timeline now? Have you jumped timelines because of decisions and choices you've made? So the reality around you is ever so slightly different.
Well, yeah. Or you can just wake up one morning and be massively different. I mean, how many times have you been doing something to work on yourself and all of a sudden you wake up one morning, you're just like, holy crap, I'm here. Like you kind of just like, you know, it didn't.
Like it dawns on you that like all the things you've been dreaming about for the past year have already come to fruition.
Or, you know, gaining weight or losing weight, or, you know, gaining muscle or losing muscle, or gaining hair or losing hair. Like, you know, you keep, you know, a watched pot never boils. Focus. All of a sudden you forget about it. And then you just wake up one morning. You're just like, what the hell? Maybe that's a part of that as well. You know, that's why, it really goes back to like, I feel as though we're looking at gravity in a manner that's based in space and time, which is not what gravity is a part of. Like they're two separate ideas that coexist to help create these fractals of light, or what we call entities, and, you know, human beings and animals and blades of grass and dewdrops and all that shit.
But I mean, there's things you can do to not break, but bend the rules, you know? And so like, and I think about, so my reference is that guy, where was it that built this, this whole park out of some kind of like huge, is it some kind of sandstone or whatever?
Oh, the guy in Florida that was on That's Incredible, where he basically redid, a massive stone garden in a sense with like swiveling
like
doors and everything, and
multi-ton
and
stuff
by himself supposedly,
with the cones and the rods.
But yeah, and that he used some kind of frequency modulation device, some kind of ancient technology that he claimed, and nobody can prove or disprove because nobody's ever actually seen him work. He does it in
complete secrecy,
like in the middle of the night or whatever it is. The idea that you could bend
that's a good point,
the reality of gravity by using some kind of frequency modulation. Maybe it's the same type of thing, that if you can kind of tamper with the structure of time space, that maybe you can kind of pull it out. And
well, that's why I like the idea of, that's why I like the idea of the explorers, where you're creating this bubble that distorts or modifies time and space, where gravity no longer has an effect. That's why I was saying, like, I feel like this is a construct that's based within space and time and gravity, because it's, you know, chocolate and peanut butter. It's a fucking Reese's peanut butter cup. It just, that shit came together, and this is what the rules are.
But see, and that's a weird one though, because when you're referencing something like that, where in Explorers, the movie, when you're creating, he was able with a 9-volt battery, in that little Tandy computer or whatever it was, he was able to create an energy bubble that would basically hold the oxygen within it. It was a non-permeable barrier.
Correct.
That basically had no weight and no actual thickness.
Yeah, no mass or actual weight.
But there was, like you said, no inertia, and you could have acceleration out the wazoo because there was nothing holding it back, because it somehow rendered the materials inside, even though it held the oxygen for them, the life forms inside would not be affected by things like inertia, gravity.
Well, but it's not even the humans. I don't think anything was affected by. I don't know about the
passage of time, but it seems to me like if what you're talking about doing there is creating a space, a 0 point outside of time space, then would it even be perceivable in time space?
Well, yeah. Well, and so that's why, especially as you were just talking about with the frequency modulation, it goes back to how we were talking about with Thoth and being able to basically think it into position. You know, what if that's what you're basically doing? That's, you know,
that it was actually built in the ether.
Well, so what if you're causing the physical structure of this stone, because we're using that as a reference, to vibrate so that it removes itself from space and time? You're getting that, you know, explorer's bubble around it. Gravity is going to have no effect to it because it's no longer a part of this construct. It's basically like thought thinking into existence, where you can now just take it from wherever you have it and you can put it to another space and time.
Well, I mean, flashing it out of existence, but what you really be doing is turning it directly back into the energy that it came from, like unraveling the knot.
Well, yeah, almost like what do you want to call it? Like oh God,
because is it not
like teleportation?
Because that thing about not being able to touch anything, like that kind of goes hand in hand with the idea of none of this is actually real.
Well, yeah, that's what, you know,
this
teleportation.
One pattern is having with another.
Yeah, like in The Fly or Star Trek or any of that, where it's just like all I'm doing is literally coding all of what your construct is, and I'm just putting it over there. I'm removing time and space and just taking all of you and just putting it over there.
I'm taking you apart.
Literally piece by piece by piece.
Yeah, I'm taking you apart, and then I'm putting you together over here.
Basically.
But they're technically speaking two totally different things. But that's where you get into a really weird conversation, because that means you're actually photocopying every single trash DNA, air quotes.
Dude, I love,
right?
But see, that
means
goes
you're
back
getting
to
everything, because you're getting memories and like, how do you get that? Like, it's not just molecular.
Well, that's
like,
where, but that's
why
where
wouldn't you
fifth
come back
dimension and
like stupid? Like, what? Oh, I pilot a starship? What? I don't, how did I get here?
Your body's here, but your soul's like next to it. And he's like, oh shit.
Why am I wearing this red shirt? What do you mean we've never used this device before?
Why didn't anybody tell me my ass was so big?
That's the funny side of it. Exactly.
Oh, look at the side of that shit. Oh, fucking Spaceballs. God, you gotta love that shit. Fam, as always, we greatly appreciate you checking in. Yeah, this is you never know what you're gonna get, and neither do we.
You never know what you're gonna get.
Oh well, we are a box of chocolates. Yeah, and as always, fam, we appreciate you, and thanks for checking us out. And as always, be good to yourself. Be good to everything else.
Much love.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.